I was in Berlin for an art residency when my parents sold my studio to fund my brother's startup. When I returned, scaffolding wrapped the building like a cage, and my walls were already being torn apart. "You can paint anywhere," my mother said. I smiled. "What's funny?" they snapped. I replied quietly, "The studio you sold was actually..." And that's when they started shouting. My name is Addison. I'm 31, and for most of my adult life, my address was a third-floor loft in an old factory block that once smelled like rust and damp concrete. Then the city discovered its charm. Alleyways got string lights, warehouses became galleries, and rent turned aggressive. My loft wasn't a status symbol. It was both a scar and a refuge. It belonged to my grandfather before it came to me. My grandfather, the painter, who raised me after my grandmother passed, and my parents became distant figures. He taught me how to stretch canvas tight enough to hum when tapped. He showed me that silence can be used with purpose. He taught me to face a blank wall until it no longer felt threatening. When he died, he left me the loft, not because it was valuable, though it later became that, but because it was mine in a family where mine usually meant temporary. In my family, my brother Samuel is the future. He's been about to succeed since college. Always one investor, one pitch, one miracle away. My parents speak about him like he's something they personally set in motion. I'm the other version, the talented but unstable daughter, whose success is treated like a coincidence. My exhibitions are nice, my commissions are interesting, and my work is considered a phase that lasted too long for their comfort. The arrangement was simple. I earned, I contributed, and I didn't ask for much. I was useful, and therefore tolerated. Berlin disrupted that pattern. For 3 months, I was anonymous. No one expected practicality. No one called to rely on me. I painted until my wrists ached and my chest felt open. I began a series I had avoided for years, work about inheritance, about being valued only when convenient, about spaces that hold memory. I came back with charcoal under my nails and a simple, hopeful plan. Finish the series in my loft, in the light my grandfather used to follow across those windows. The taxi turned onto my street, and my mind struggled to process what I saw. Scaffolding, metal poles, netting, like the building had been prepared for transport. Workers moved with authority. A dumpster sat outside, filled with broken drywall and splintered wood stacked like remains. I stepped out before the car fully stopped. The front door was propped open. Inside, the hallway looked stripped. Mailboxes gone, posters removed, paint scraped into pale patches. The air tasted like dust. "Can I help you?" A man called, holding a tablet with quiet confidence. "I'm Addison," I said, steadying my voice. "Unit 3C, that's my studio." He checked the screen. 3C, full renovation. Your items were moved to storage. New owners began demolition yesterday. New owners. The words landed sharply. "I didn't sell," I said. He gave a polite final look. "I just follow the schedule." My phone buzzed. A message from my mother. "Don't dramatize. We made a reasonable business decision. Samuel needed capital, that proof of assets for a closing round. You can paint anywhere." I read it twice. My throat tightened. I called, still hoping for some misunderstanding. My father answered. "Addison," he said casually, "you're back." "Did you sell my studio?" I asked. There was a pause. Not shock or guilt, just irritation. "It was an investment," he said, "for the family." "For Samuel," I replied. "Don't do that," he warned. My mother cut in, her voice smooth. "You're overreacting." "I'm standing in front of my building. They're tearing it apart." "And you'll be fine," she said with certainty. "You always are. You can paint anywhere." I heard Samuel laughing in the background. That sound shifted something in me. "Put him on," I said. He took the phone like it was an obligation. "Addison," he said, already tired. "I didn't want you to find out like this." "Like what?" I asked. "With my walls in a dumpster?" "I needed liquidity," he said, sounding rehearsed. "Timing mattered. It's not personal. It's just a space." "It's my grandfather," I said. "It's a room," he corrected, sharper now, "and you don't even use it efficiently. I'm building something scalable. Investors don't wait for emotions." I waited for my mother to correct him. She didn't. Silence answered. I ended the call. That night, I didn't cry. I couldn't. Anger held me upright like a structure I hadn't known I had. I called Maya. She wasn't someone I socialized with. She was a lawyer I met through a collector who appreciated both art and legal battles. Maya focused on facts. She didn't encourage emotion, but she didn't ignore it either. Send me everything, she said. Messages, emails, anything showing how they presented the sale. And don't speak to them without me. The next morning, in her office, she reviewed my documents with a level of attention my parents never gave me. There's an issue with how this was sold, she said. What kind of issue? I asked, already uneasy. Not a usage restriction, she clarified. It's split ownership. Your grandfather set it up years ago. I paused. Split? The building structure and the unit interior are legally separate, Maya explained, pointing to the file. The developer can buy the building. The association controls shared areas, but the interior build-out, the studio itself, and the airspace rights tied to 3C belong to you. They weren't authorized to sell that. I stared at her. So they couldn't sell it? They sold what they thought was the studio, the external interest, she said, but not the part with actual value. Not without you. She showed me the recorded sale documents. My signature was there, similar but not mine, enough to pass through routine processing. Worse was an attached letter, formal and damaging. It described me as an unstable artist, unable to manage assets, requiring family oversight. I sat there reading a version of myself turned into a liability. Not a daughter, but a problem to manage. They didn't just take it, I said quietly. They tried to remove me. They tried to make you replaceable, Maya replied. That shows intent. Then she did something my family never did. She treated the situation as important. We filed an emergency motion, requested a stop work order, raised fraud claims, and notified the developer that the interior rights weren't included in the sale. Any further demolition risked liability for destroying property they didn't own. By afternoon, my mother called 12 times. I didn't answer. The version of me that kept peace would have picked up. Now I watched the phone ring without reacting. 2 days later, they came to my temporary rental as if they were addressing a problem. My mother walked in uninvited. My father stood behind her, tired. Samuel held his phone as if documenting my reaction. You look awful, my mother said. Thank you, I replied. We need to talk like adults, she said. You forged my signature, I answered. My father flinched. Samuel looked away briefly. My mother stayed composed. We did what was necessary. For Samuel, I said. For the family, she corrected. Samuel stepped forward, impatient. The injunction is affecting things, he said. It's disrupting my funding. I need stability. My walls are in a dumpster, I replied. But your funding is the issue. He frowned. Stop making this emotional. We'll get you another studio, a better one. A replacement, I asked. Like history can be replaced. My mother's expression tightened. You're too sentimental. That's your weakness. There it was again. The label they used for anything in me that didn't serve them. You can paint anywhere, she repeated, slow and firm. You don't need that building. I looked at her and felt something settle into focus. They weren't confused. They weren't sorry. They were only frustrated that I was pushing back. Maya told me to meet them at the site, not for closure, but for positioning, for witnesses, for the moment that would shift their narrative completely. The sky was gray when we met beneath the scaffolding. The netting moved in the wind like a thin curtain, trying to hide what was happening. My mother looked at the building with irritation. Look, she said. It's progress. You should be grateful. Samuel's eyes were red, not from regret, but from pressure. Just call this off, he said. We can fix it. Please, Addison, please. From him, it sounded less like a request and more like a demand with softer wording. My mother turned to me, annoyed. Stop enjoying this. I almost laughed. Almost. Then she repeated her usual line, as if it explained everything. You can paint anywhere. I smiled. Samuel reacted quickly. What's funny? He asked. The tone had changed, more direct, more uncertain. They could sense a shift, and it unsettled them. I said quietly, the studio you sold was actually, and then I stopped. Silence creates pressure, so I let it build. My mother's eyes widened. Finish, she said sharply. Maya stepped forward with a folder and handed over a document. No theatrics, just precision. Your parents didn't sell what they believed they sold, she said. This transaction does not include the interior rights of Unit 3C. It does not include the studio build-out or the airspace tied to that unit. Those belong solely to Addison. For a brief moment, no one spoke. Then Samuel's expression changed completely. Interior rights? My mother gave a short, dismissive laugh. That's not real. It is, Maya replied, And if your contractor continues removing property you don't own, we will add claims for destruction and conversion. My father spoke quietly. Addison, we didn't know. You didn't read, I said. You didn't care enough to read. I finished calmly. It was never yours to sell. That's when the shouting began. My mother first, loud, forceful, as if volume could override facts. You did this to punish us, she said. You've always been jealous. Samuel ran a hand through his hair, his voice unsteady. Fix it, he said. Addison, fix it. Call them. Tell them everything is fine. Tell them what? I asked. That I owe you my life? He stepped closer, tense. You owe me. You always help. My mother pointed at me. You're selfish. You're destroying your brother. I looked at her and remembered my grandfather's words. Silence can be used with purpose. So I used it. I let their statements sit in the open. I let the workers hear. I let the site manager observe. I let the developer's representative, who had arrived mid-argument, watch everything unfold without interruption. Maya didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. All further communication goes through my office, she said. Any direct contact will be treated as harassment. The signature is forged. The sale is invalid. Work on the interior is suspended. Suspended. The word landed with weight. Before the hearing, I visited the storage unit the foreman mentioned. It was on the edge of town, rows of metal doors under fluorescent lights, the kind of place where people store pieces of their lives in boxes. A clerk handed me a key without looking up. Unit 48B. Sign here. Inside, everything was stacked, canvases wrapped in plastic, crates labeled in marker. My grandfather's old wooden stool sat between a dresser and a box of holiday lights. The seat still had the mark from when I dropped a palette knife at 12. A small mistake that left a permanent trace. I placed my hand on it, and finally I felt it. Not dramatic grief, but something sharper and quieter. The kind that tightens your jaw and makes your eyes burn. My mother called while I stood there. I answered, not out of obligation, but to understand her tone now that consequences were clear. She didn't greet me. Maya is threatening your father. She's stating your actions, I said. This is unreasonable, she replied. We were trying to help your brother. By selling me, I said. There was a pause, then a softer tone. You're taking this too far. I looked at the stool, at the paint embedded in the wood. Too far was forging my name, I said. My father spoke next, tired. Addison, we're your parents. No, I replied. You're people who had access. Samuel took the phone, urgent. I can't lose everything, he said. This deal falls apart without collateral. This is my future. Just sign something. Tell them you agree. We'll fix it later. Fix it, I repeated. With what? Another misrepresentation? For the first time, I heard fear without confidence behind it. Addison, please. Before, I would have responded differently. I would have tried to resolve it. I didn't this time. I couldn't, not after seeing my name used as a tool. I'm ending the call, I said. If you contact me again, it goes through Maya. At the hearing, my parents sat behind their lawyer, presenting themselves as composed. My mother held her posture as if rules were an inconvenience. My father looked older. Samuel couldn't stay still. Maya presented the case clearly. The split ownership, the forged signature, the damaging letter, and the timeline tied to Samuel's funding deadline. The judge remained neutral, but his questions became more direct. When he granted the stop work order, Samuel's posture collapsed. Outside the courthouse, my mother tried once more. She stepped in front of me. You're doing this because you hate us, she said quietly. I looked at her carefully. No, I replied. I'm doing this because I value myself more than your approval. She reacted immediately, then shifted into a familiar tone. You've always been dramatic, she said, turning away. Maybe I had been, but maybe that was the first balanced response I'd had in that family. A few weeks later, the sale was reversed where possible. The developer adjusted plans for the building, but the interior rights remained with me. The forgery investigation continued. Samuel's investors withdrew. My parents began dealing with real consequences. And the city, through a program my grandfather had been involved in, offered me stewardship of the space, not ownership in a transactional sense, but responsibility and authority that didn't depend on anyone else. The first time I walked back into the loft, it didn't feel the same. The walls were marked, the floor exposed, but the light still entered the same way, steady and unchanged, reaching the place where my easel once stood. I stood there, expecting to feel overwhelmed, Instead, I felt stable. They hadn't taken my life. They had removed an illusion, the one where I had to earn my place in my own family. I took a piece of charcoal from my bag. My hands were steady. On a fresh section of drywall, I drew the first line, clear and deliberate. They tried to turn the space into an asset. I turned it back into meaning. And the conclusion is simple. The moment a family treats you as a resource, the relationship changes when you stop being useful. It's painful at first, but it's also the moment you begin to belong to yourself.